No excuses this month. I bought too many books. I'm going to be honest. Though a bunch of these are new releases, so that's not entirely my fault, but this is quite a bit.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to the September 2025 comic book haul. These are all the collected editions I picked up in the month of September or arrived in the month of September. Some exceptions. After I filmed last month's, the August haul, I went and bought some stuff at some comic shops, so those technically were bought in August, but it was after I already made the video, so just rolled into this one. There are also some stuff I bought in September that won't arrive till October, like I don't have my Krakoa Omnibus yet. We'll talk about that next month, because that's how it goes. But we're going to go through all of what I picked up, which, as I said, is a lot. I went a little overboard. There were some opportunities that came my way, and when you have opportunities, you take them, right? So there was a lot of that. Figure out which company I got like 5 omnibuses from this month. You can figure it out by watching the video, and if you enjoy this type of video, hit the like button so it tells YouTube, tells me you enjoyed it. Hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Let's get to it. Lots to talk about. I'm going to be a little bit briefer than I was last month because we got a lot more books to discuss. Alright, we're going to start with something easy and short, which is the Ninja Turtles IDW Collection Volume 18 hardcover. I already did a full video breaking down the Ninja Turtle hardcovers, the reading order, all that good stuff, the contents within, so I'm not going to do any more talking about this. We've got plenty of other books I have not discussed, so we're moving this one out of the way. Alright, next up we have a manga, Gundam Thunderbolt Volume 24. This series is nearing its conclusion. I think it just wrapped up serialization in Japan, so there's only a few more volumes left. Interestingly included is that Chapter 200 is fully in color, which I love seeing, and I love that Viz kept that on their signature release. The price are now $16.99 on signatures, which shocked me a little bit. They were $14.99 for a while. I don't remember if 23 was also $16.99, but price increases, they happen across the board with all hobbies, though a $2 price increase certainly seems like, yeah, that's the rate of things going up, more so than some other things. But yeah, pretty solid volume. Looking forward to seeing the rest of the series. Alright, we got Codename G.I. Joe Book 2, which came insanely quick. So the Energon Universe hardcovers so far have been collecting about 12 issues. The G.I. Joe ones, because they started with miniseries, have been 10 issues. So this book contains the Scarlet and Destro miniseries, 5 issues of each in one volume. I picked the Destro cover. There also is a Scarlet cover, because what they do with these is there's 2 covers for all of them. So I went with the Destro because I've been kind of picking the villain covers. These 2 miniseries I don't think were as strong as Duke and Cobra Commander. I think the Scarlet was nice. It takes a lot of beats from John Wick. It reminded me of Kelly Thompson's Black Widow. Appropriately, Kelly Thompson also wrote Scarlet here. But I really like Dan Waters' Destro miniseries as it kind of goes into the political side of the arms race between the different companies, between Destro's Mars Industries and Tomax and Xamot's Crimson Empire and all these other things, and like how does Cobra Commander get all of these parties that don't want to work together to work under Cobra. And I think that makes for a really, really cool read. So yeah, this is just kind of like the next Energon Universe hardcover. We don't have any further ones solicited because we kind of need more issues to come out in trade before we get there, but there's the 2 G.I. Joe books together. And then here is our Transformers and Void Rivals as well, so you can kind of see how we're building out the overall collection. I really like these because I read these books monthly, so for me, I'm not buying the trades so much as just waiting for the hardcovers, which I think look really, really nice. I love the foil on them as well. Gives them a nice premium feel, and it's nice to get that oversized artwork. So we'll see how it goes. I think the next book we'll probably see is Transformers Book 2, which will contain the rest of Daniel Warren Johnson's run. Void Rivals, I think, hasn't hit the 24 issues yet in publication. And then with G.I. Joe, we're going to have to wait till issue 12 comes out, which hasn't hit either. So I think we'll see a Transformers probably soon, but for now, these are the 4 we got. So it's a good time to catch up. We're in between releases. Alright, so we're going to move on over to Marvel, and I'm going to start with the stuff that didn't come out in the August-September window, but were much older. So I went comic shopping. I went to several comic shops outside of my normal one in my city. There's a few others, and so I decided, let me go look around and see what I find. I found the Man Without Fear miniseries, which is the Jed MacKay Daredevil miniseries that came out between the Charles Soule and Chip Zdarsky Daredevil runs. And because it wasn't done by either creator, it got left out of the omnibuses. And I talked about this in my creator-focused omnibus problems video, where I kind of said I think it would have been nice to include this in either volume, or done an oversized hardcover of it, because it's a 5-issue series. It's not super essential. Like if you jump from Soul to Zdarsky, you might not even notice it's there. But I think it's a neat story chapter, and it would have been nice to get like a Daredevil by Jed MacKay like hardcover with this. But luckily, I was able to find the trade at a local shop, which was really great for me, because now I've got that gap filled in my modern Daredevil collection. Speaking of filling gaps, the Extermination crossover. So this is a crossover storyline that is kind of the culmination of several X-Men storylines. There was the Age of Apocalypse series, which was kind of a version of Age of Apocalypse where they didn't win at the end, like in the original event. It was kind of a what if. This has 2 issues of Astonishing X-Men I didn't have, as well as the last 2 issues of the Extreme X-Men, not the Chris Claremont one, but the one where they were traveling the multiverse and stuff. This is basically a crossover, and it's kind of the culmination of several storylines, also within X-Force, with the Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler being part of X-Force. I'd wanted to read this part of the story, and I'm also trying to sort of piece together Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler, because, I'm a big Nightcrawler fan. So I wanted to kind of read some more of that. So it was another find at that same shop, and I was like, cool, that's another little gap filled in until hopefully we get some epic collections of this era. All right, this came out this year, which was Human Torch Burn. This is the first 6 issues of the Carl Kessel, Scotty Young Human Torch series from 2003, and this was obviously done to tie into Fantastic Four First Steps. This is only half the series. I had kind of wished that they would have reprinted the complete collection that was from a few years ago. That was all 12 issues. Interestingly, it doesn't have the normal Marvel spine design, but kind of like a nice fancy one with the logo. You can tell the artwork is very early 2000s. But this is, and I've read the whole series, this is the better half of it. But I would still like to see maybe they do a second trade paperback that's the second half. Because I think it's kind of neat that they gave Johnny a solo book. And this one kind of goes into his high school bully, basically. Like he had a high school bully before he had powers. And then kind of their connection relationship. And kind of goes into it, because it's very interesting, because his high school friend was a firefighter. And so there's a little bit of contrast between the two of them. And I think it's really cool and gives Johnny a lot of good character depth. And I really liked it. I really, really like it. So hopefully they reprint the second half of the series. Like I said, not as good, but still worth putting out again. Or they're just going to be like, here's your Human Torch Epic collection with all the solo stuff, because I think you could do it in 2. All right, so the Red Band comics were kind of a controversial thing for a lot of reasons, not the split Vampire Skull, is that what we're looking at? Anyways, the Red Band comics that Marvel was doing, and they're still doing them, which are basically like, we made them more violent, but they still can't curse without censorship. Weird double standards. So they did these Red Band comics, which were done polybagged. So if you got the single issues, they were in plastic bags, or caution, adult, mature content. And it's funny, because I think this Blade series, was a little bit more violent than the average Marvel comic. But to be honest, Benjamin Percy's Ghost Rider run, all the artists on his run did more violent things than any of these Red Band books have. That's a whole topic for another day. The important part here is that a lot of people who don't buy singles were like, well, how am I supposed to read this? Because there was no digital sale. They were not going up on Marvel Unlimited because of the explicit content and the way that Marvel Unlimited works. So there was no digital option. And so people were like, are they never going to reprint them? And so me included bought the singles because, hey, I'm going to miss a Blade story, because I usually collect Blade and trade. But yeah, it took a significant amount of time. Not as long as Werewolf by Night is taking. We'll talk about that in January. But they did put out a trade paperback. And it's interesting. It's not sold. I thought it would be sold like plastic wrapped or something. But no, it just says Red Band. Just says explicit content on the back. So there is a way to get it outside of the single issue form. Take all that, what I said, and apply it to Daredevil Unleash Hell, which is a 2-for-1 for me, because it's got Daredevil and it's got Ghost Rider. What a winning combo. So this was done, Erica Schultz has been doing some Daredevil miniseries, like Woman Without Fear, Bloody Reunion, and she also did Daredevil Gang War, the tie-ins. And so she's become the de facto writer for Electra Nachios' Daredevil. And so I've been enjoying her run. This is like the 3rd series in that. And this also brings back the character of Muse, who was in the Charles Soule run of Daredevil. Of course, the character did appear in Daredevil Born Again, and so that's kind of like why Muse is back. But I'm really, really happy with how Erica Schultz brought Muse back, because it's not a resurrection of the character negating what was done in the Charles Soule run, and instead just kind of builds upon it. And I think that was super duper cool. So yeah, very happy about this, and also very happy it's got a trade paperback. Also very funny. I maybe we'll talk about this in a future video. Every single Erica Schultz Daredevil miniseries has a different spine design. That's just how it goes sometimes, but pretty solid. I actually like this one. The Blade one, I guess I didn't mention story-wise. The Blade one takes place after Bloodhunt and kind of deals with what he did during Bloodhunt, and it's Brian Hill who had done the Blade ongoing. It only lasted 10 issues. So these two Blade volumes kind of go before this, then you have Bloodhunt, then you have this. So these are both solid, but I do really like Daredevil Unleash Hell in particular. So speaking of Hell, and considering I'm filming this in October, it's appropriate, Hell Hunters. This is a miniseries by Phil Kennedy Johnson and an artist I don't have the name memorized in my head, Adam Gorman, which is basically when Phil Kennedy Johnson introduced Sal Romero's Ghost Rider, which was the Ghost Rider 1944, also known as Ghost Rider World War II, and it was like, oh hey, here's a Ghost Rider from World War II, and so this is the series about Sal and his war buddies, which includes Bucky, Nick Fury Sr., Logan, Peggy Carter, and Dum Dum Dugan. So it's awesome. It's kind of a mix of Howling Commandos and Ghost Rider, and Wolverine is here. Interestingly, Captain America is not here. I think he sort of appears, but basically what I kind of liked about it is it kind of keeps them away, because they're fighting Nazis, and they're getting rid of Nazis, and there's Ghost Rider stuff involved, and there's demons involved, and they're also fighting, like, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff. And there is some moments in this where, like, you know, Nick Fury Sr. here kind of goes into, like, it talks to Bucky about, like, kind of the ethics of fighting Nazis, where it's like, yeah, we're still exterminating Nazis, but there's certain things you've been doing, Bucky, you probably should tone back a little bit, which I kind of like, because, like, Bucky, teenage sidekick during World War II, sort of has, like, this kind of sort of clean-cut vibe, and I kind of like that there was, like, a little bit of grit to, like, the reality of a teenage sidekick superhero in World War II, and they touch into that. And I think it's awesome, and it kind of does a little bit of foreshadowing for, like, later modern Bucky stories, you know, post-Winter Soldier. Also, interestingly, it's not the normal white Marvel spine, but actually has the logo and a little bit of grit texture to it that kind of continues to the back, which I like, because it's not taking place in current-day Marvel stuff. This is taking place in the past. And as you can see, from the pages of Incredible Hulk comics comes Ghost Rider 44. Yes, because that was where this debuted, and I was waiting to buy this trade. This is the Incredible Hulk Volume 2 War Devils for Philip Kennedy Johnson's run. I've read part of this trade before, and could you guess? Yeah, it's the part with Ghost Rider. Like, I'm not that hard to figure out. So I wanted this trade because of the Ghost Rider introductory arc, which is only about half the trade. It's like 3 issues. It's issues 6 through 8. This has 6 to 11, plus the War is Hell story from War is Hell 2019. This is the part I wanted, and I was like, well, I'll just wait till Hell Hunters comes out and order them together. So I have the whole, like, Sal Romero Ghost Rider. I hope there's more of him, because I really like the character. And in terms of reading order, you could read Hell Hunters first and then read the Hulk issues, because these take place in present day, kind of introduce the idea. But you can read this as is, and it leads right into this, which I think is awesome. So I hope we see more of this character. I know he did appear in a couple issues of Thunderbolt's Doomstrike, which I will probably buy the trade of, because that's how it goes with me and Ghost Rider. Cool stuff. Highly recommended Hell Hunters. Hell continues with Hellverine. I don't know how all this lined up. September was just like Hell books. But anyways, we got Hellverine here, which I think is a fun series. So this is the Hellverine ongoing, which is after the Hellverine miniseries. Go watch my Ghost Rider video. I explained this. I don't need to do this again. Go watch my Ghost Rider video on the reading order if you care about these sort of things. Interestingly, though, the previous Hellverine miniseries was under the standard white Marvel branding for the spine. This one is under the X-Men branding for the From the Ashes era, where you got the character portrait and the logo and the number and all that. Because this is officially an X-Office edited book, even though it's Ghost Rider. But it is a blend of Ghost Rider and Wolverine, so you got that going on. This is the first 5 issues. The second trade will contain issues 6 through 10, and then we don't know if the series, time of recording, we don't know if the series is coming back after Age of Revelation, though the way the letters page on issue 10 read sounds like it probably isn't. But I enjoyed this. This was fun. It was a good follow-up, and it was a good spotlight for this character as Wolverine now. Kind of gave him a little bit more distinction from his other family members. All right, Tron download. So if you're prepping for Tron Ares, I have a video coming up very soon for all of you. But Tron Download is a collection of comics that Marvel published to promote Tron Legacy. So this contains, it's basically just 4 issues, $20 cover price, but they're kind of thick issues because I think they're more graphic novel types. So the first thing here we have, Peter David wrote an adaptation of the original Tron, and this is basically what it is. It's a 2-issue adaptation. It goes through the events of the first movie really, really quickly. It cuts out a lot of stuff because it's only a 2-issue adaptation. I always felt like it should have been longer than this, but they kind of go through all the basic points to get you through it. That's not really the reason to buy this. The reason to buy this is Tron Betrayal. Now, Tron Betrayal does sort of spoil some revelations from the Tron Legacy movie, so I do recommend reading it afterwards. But this is a 2-issue prequel comic to Tron Legacy. It goes into more detail about the fall of Clue. It goes into more detail about Kevin Flynn and his family and how, what happened to his wife and how does he deal with his kid and how things kind of went wrong on his grid and everything that we learned in Tron Legacy. And it provides a lot of context as to a lot of things that went on in that film and in those flashbacks. There is some minor things that don't line up 100% exact, but it is still canon in my eyes, and I do recommend reading it if you are a Tron fan, especially if you love the lore. As bonus material, you get the script for the adaptation, which is really cool, and then some additional artwork for that. So it's a pretty good trade. This is everything that Disney ever made for Tron comics in one volume, so it's worth grabbing. And yeah, as far as I know, Tron Betrayal is still canon. It still fits in my eyes. I always treat canon not with a precise hammer, but like kind of a general idea. Like, things aren't going to line up between mediums, but as long as the stories do, that's the important part. So yeah, do recommend picking this up if you are a Tron fan, and it's nice that Disney put this out again right before the new movie. All right, now we're going to move into Epic Collections, starting off with things that came out prior. We got Daredevil Modern Collection number 6, The Devil in Cellblock D. This came out a couple months ago. Normally I do pick up my Epics I've been mostly caught up on Epics. I let this one slide a little bit because for whatever reason, they decided with Daredevil, they were doing them in order. They start with Volume 2, which is the beginning of the Bendis stuff. They did 2, 3, and 4, and then they skipped over and did 6. And 6, I believe, is the end of the Bendis run. Or is this... No, this is the beginning of the Brubaker run. So they just skipped over the last part of the Bendis run to jump straight to Brubaker. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe if I read this, I would be like, oh, that's why, because TV show tie-in. Because the next one they're releasing is number 5, the end of the Bendis stuff. So I was like, cool, I'm not in a rush to buy Devil in Cellblock D. So I didn't. And then I saw my normal site that I buy stuff from. They're like, it's on sale, 40% off. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm buying it now. I'm still not going to read it. I'm obviously going to wait till Volume 5 is out so then I can, read in order since it is a modern book. It is kind of on the shrimpy side. This is kind of a thin Epic for a $50 cover price. This is something I'm actually going to talk about. Epic Collections went up in price, and I don't want to make a direct comparison to DC Finance, but those books are all $40 still. I'm sure at some point that'll change. But this is $50, and it's, it is kind of a thick ink book, but it's still, you're getting 82 to 94 in annual 2007, so you're getting 14 issues if you go on normal page count, which is it's a little small of an Epic, especially for $50. So I'm glad I got it on sale. With almost all the books I buy, I rarely buy at full price. This is no exception. All right, here was a fun find. I was, like I said, I was at comic shops looking around. I found a Fantastic Four All in the Family. Okay, so for those wondering, why is this a big deal? This is volume 17 of Fantastic Four, and I'm sure they're going to reprint this at some point, right? It's only the first Fantastic Four epic ever released and never reprinted past its 2014 printing. Yeah, it's been 11 years. I'm sure eventually they will reprint it, and at that point I'll probably rebuy it because this copy is not... it's on the old paper that kind of could yellow, and it's not in the best condition. this corner is a bit messed up, like, it got dented. I'm working on flattening it out. The nice part is the comic shop I went to, normally they sell things at cover price, which back then, $35 was the cover price in 2014. But they actually had a discount at $25, which, considering the age of the book and the availability, I was like, all right, fine, I'm going to take it. That kind of sucks, but I have it now and I can read it in print instead of having to read it on Marvel Unlimited. They are, they're running the Fantastic Four epics seemingly in order for the John Byrne era. This is right after Byrne. It's got, Roger Stern, Steve Englehart, Chris Claremont. Like, they were not exactly sure who was going to be writing it full time. So, I'm glad to have it. I'm sure they'll reprint it at some point, but who knows how long that'll be. Like, maybe they'll, because there's a couple others I want reprinted. But yeah, this is crazy. This one is this old, but it does have like a lot of iconic stuff in it, which is like, you got Fantastic Four versus the X-Men in here, which I think is also getting reprinted. Yeah, first printing 2014. My goodness. So that's another gap filled. I'm only missing 3 Fantastic Four epics. It's number 2, number 5, and number 25. So we'll see when they announce more reprints, which I hope is soon, because I would like... 2 and 5 are inaccessible because they're the Kirby and Lee runs, so they need to be reprinted because, oh my god, the aftermarket prices. Maybe I can find a good deal on 25. We'll see. But hey, one more down. So on that note, Wolverine Epic Collection 3, Blood and Claws. Okay, very excited about this. This was also a find at that same shop. $40 cover price because it's a little bit newer, a little bit skinnier than that Fantastic Four. But this was the one I was missing for the Larry Hama. I don't want to say blah, blah, blah. So this was the one I was missing for the Larry Hama run on Wolverine, which was my main goal in Wolverine Epics was going to be, I'm just going to get the Larry Hama run, which is volumes 3 through 10. He starts on 3. He leaves at the first part of 10. They haven't made all of those, obviously, but I mapped it out according to how things would go. So I'm big Larry Hama fan. I've read his entire G.I. Joe run. I love his Wolverine stuff. I had all the other volumes they made. This was the one I was missing, and so I was very, very happy to find a copy of it, because I'm sure it'll get reprinted at some point, but I think this was a 2021 book, so it's going to be a while, I think, before they reprint it again. And they probably won't do it until they do 4 and 5, which seem to be a little far off at this point. Yeah, I think this was first printing 2021. So, this is a little bit, overdue for a reprint. But, they can't keep all these books in print because there's like 400 of them. So I get it. But I'm happy I found it. Happy I got it. I did pay cover price, but considering cover price is $40, and we're about to look at a couple more that are newer, that are, this has more pages than the Daredevil, which is 50. So point stands, I still got at least a decent deal. My thing is I don't like to pay over cover price for older epics, because at that point I should wait for a reprint, but very happy about this one. All right, new release, Generation X Epic Collection Volume 5, Family Business. This is the next to last Generation X Epic. This one's a pretty solid page count, 1999 to 2000. Some other books would be already into modern era when you hit 2000, but Generation X, they're going to keep it in classic for the whole run. This is 48 to 62, Annual 99, X-Man 50, and New Warriors 5. This is going to be, one more volume because the series ran to issue 75. This is my favorite X-Men spinoff book. I usually don't care about the side X-Men teams as much, X-Force, X-Factor, Excalibur, etc. I'm usually just kind of like a very focused on like Uncanny and X-Men. I'm not a big fan of New Mutants. I like the New Mutants characters, but I didn't really like their stories as much, but I love Generation X. And part of the reason I love Generation X is that everybody's got weird powers. Skin can stretch his skin, Husk can shed her skin, there's a lot of skin powers, Chamber's missing part of his face because his psionic energy blasted a hole in his chest. I love how weird their powers are. They got the bad end of the stick on their powers, which I think is great. And then you have Jubilee on the team, who has fireworks fingers, and everybody's like, what are you complaining about? It's fun. I love the dynamics of the characters. I love the way the storylines progress. It started with Scott Lobdell, Chris Bachalo, which was great. Then it went to Larry Hama, which I thought the Larry Hama stuff wasn't as good, which kind of didn't feel like, Larry Hama writing quality-wise was good. I just didn't think he was a good fit for the characters. Jason Fairbearer, I actually really like Jason Fairbearer writing Generation X. Some people said they don't like it, but I enjoyed it. I think I just really enjoy these characters, and it doesn't really matter who's writing or drawing them, as long as it's true to the cast. And so I enjoyed this. A lot of Terry Dodson art as well, which really helps because Terry Dodson's one of those great artists. I really enjoyed this volume. So I'm sad to see the series wrapping up, but I'm kind of like, man, I kind of want to reread it once I have that final volume because I've just enjoyed it so much. And I wish these characters could get adapted into some media, like at least an animated series, because they're really cool, and I would love more people to know about them. And then very recently, we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 Homecoming. So this is the classic Guardians, not the Star-Lord team. It's your Vance Astro, Martin X, Charlie 17, Starhawk, Yondu team. Nikki Gold's in here somewhere as well. This is the original classic Guardians team. They had scattered appearances through the 70s, and in the 90s they got an ongoing. This is 7 to 20, Annual 1, and then material from different annual crossovers, because they would do this thing where it's like you get one story that's based on the thing you bought, and then one story it connects to this other crossover. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here. It's been nice we've been getting these, because there wasn't good collections of these. They had done some scattered trade paperbacks, but I'm really glad to be reading all this for the first time. Haven't read a page of this yet. I got this in the mail yesterday. So I haven't gotten to this yet, but it will be my next book to read. But I'm excited. I'm glad. I'm glad there's more coming out. Now, that being said, I do have I got a pick a bone Marvel pricing department. So here's the thing. I'm used to X-Men tax. So when there's price increases announced, Generation X Volume 5 is $55. Generation X Volume 4, which came out last year, same time, $45. So a price increase happened. These are basically the same page count. Gen X is now $10 more than the last year's volume. Guardians of the Galaxy is in the same boat, where it is also on an annual volume. Last year's volume was $45, which was pretty standard. This year's volume is $60. Okay, so the prevailing theory is that Guardians of the Galaxy is going to sell less than an X-Men book, so they raise the price here so they can make more per unit to make up for the loss on any other books they don't increase, like Spider-Man, X-Men did not change, whereas the smaller titles, Guardians, Ghost Rider, they did change. A $15 increase, and it's a little bit longer. Homecoming is a little bit longer than Quest for the Shield, but it's still a $15 increase, and Generation X is $5 cheaper, and they're about the same length of book. So they are kind of screwing around with the pricing. This is all stuff out of their hands because it's current world economics and trade deals and such. So I'm not going to blame Marvel on this, but if those things that cause those increases to go away, and they don't lower the price, that's on Marvel at that point. It does suck. I'm at a position where I can get things at discount at release. Not everybody's in that position, and that I think is the worst part about it, because I looked at the Canadian price of Guardians, $75. That is rough. What is the Canadian price on $68.75? Yeah, these prices are getting rough. DC competitively is doing their finest at $40, and they're sticking at $40. We'll see how long that lasts. Nothing lasts forever in the world of prices, because that's how capitalism works. But it is a bummer, and it has made, I don't know if it's maybe more selective on Epics, but I think because I've been more caught up on Epics, I'm like, okay, I'll deal with it. But I will say the Guardians increase. That one stung more than I think the Generation X, I was like, that's kind of seems like how we've been shooting up. A lot of Epics are now 55 when they were 45, but Guardians, I'm like, ooh, 60. That extra $5, I don't see where it went. It's the pain of paying for the team you like that's not as popular as the other thing. So I got one Marvel Omnibus this time. I actually have a second one, but I ordered it yesterday, so it's not going to be here for the video. We've got Tomb of Dracula, Night of the Vampire. This is the first Marvel Omnibus of Tomb of Dracula. This is the third printing of Volume 1. It's by Barb Wolfman and Gene Colan. This is your classic Marvel horror stuff. Very appropriate for Halloween season. I'm really glad they reprinted this, and I don't want to sound ungrateful, but hey, Marvel, now that we bought this, and I saw that, on several sites, it's like a #1 seller, please reprint Volume 2 and 3. Those have never been reprinted, and also please reprint Werewolf by Night, because I really like Werewolf by Night. I love Tomb of Dracula. It's classic, it's iconic. I'm really, really happy to have it in omnibus form, but I also would like Werewolf by Night reprinted, because the Marvel Masterworks were doing both Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night, which I think they kept them out of circulation. But Masterworks are apparently on forever hiatus at this point, which sucks because I think they should have finished a couple. There was a couple books that should have, they only needed like one more book. It would have been nice to finish those. Now that that's done, if you're not doing those anymore, can we get the Omnis back out and then do epic collections for those that want epics? I'm personally cool buying Omnis for classic horror, and I love this era of stuff. So anyways, this is the thing. If Marvel, if you're watching, please do Volume 2 and 3 and Werewolf by Night, and do the Frankenstein if you can. I don't know, the Frankenstein's not as well known, but the Marvel Frankenstein comic, would love to see that as well. You throw classic monsters at me and I will bite. That was pun intended. I love my classic monsters. All right, switching over to DC, we have another comic shop pickup when I was touring around. This was Legion of Superheroes Death of a Dream. It's the second trade for Mark Waid and Barry Kitson's Legion run, which is a great run, and I wish it would get reprinted, because look at the quality of the paper here. Early DC trades in the 2000s are like on some of the crappiest paper ever. It just doesn't hold up to time. It's yellowing just by existing. And unfortunately, there's been nothing better since. I don't know why I slammed that so loud. This is the best we got. And so I saw this, and yeah, the shop was selling at cover price $15. Yeah, it's old. Yeah, I love this run. I have it all in singles, I think. I have the entire run in singles, and I've got a chunk of it in trade. I would love an Omnibus or a DC Finest or something. There's a lot of Legion stuff that is really great, and I think that, it's crazy with Mark Waid writing like 10 books at DC a month. That's not an exact number. I just think that off the top of my head. It would be nice to see this run reprinted. Kind of hoping so. But in the meantime, it's just kind of like, oh, pick that up while you see it. That's the Legion fan experience, actually. All right, another older release picked up on sale, Superman 78, The Metal Curtain. I already made a video talking about how I wish this was a hardcover. Because, it would have matched, but that's how it goes sometimes. But yeah, it's a neat series. It's got Metallo in the Christopher Reeve Superman movie universe, which is cool. A normal comic shop had some trade-ins, one of them being the Riddler Year 1 miniseries. It was written by Paul Dano, who played the Riddler in Matt Reeves' The Batman. Steven Subic did the artwork. This is kind of a psychological dig into the Riddler as a character. It goes into more of his backstory. You start to see events from the movie from his perspective. I read this in singles. I thought it was all right. It's not amazing, but I think it's kind of a neat idea. Like, here's the actor that did all the research into the character, writing about the character. There was a nice hardcover of it. And the reason I picked it up is because I have the Batman on 4K Steelbook. I have the soundtrack. I have the Penguin series on 4K, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is part of that same world, and I really like that world, so, here I am. I was like, because when I read it in singles, I was like, this is all right. But, I was like, okay, now that I got it here, I'll probably solve those singles, but yeah, it's another part of the Batman collection for the Matt Reeves epic crime saga, or whatever we're calling it. Yeah, so cool stuff. All right, Milestone Universe Shadow Cabinet. Talked about this in the video about paperbacks versus hardcovers and all that, because I wish it was a hardcover, since it does seem to be kind of the conclusion of the current Milestone Returns era. It has like the Milestone 30th special in here, plus the miniseries. It's sort of a culmination of all the plot threads that we had seen throughout Static and an Icon on Hardware and everything involving Rocket and the Blood Syndicate. Like everything, even Duo, got in here. It felt like a culmination of the Milestone Returns era, which seems to be on hold. If it's coming back, we'll see. I mean, there is a Static Batman Beyond crossover coming up, so that's pretty cool. But this is kind of like the final trade for now. And yeah, kind of sucks that it's kind of at an end, because I really, really enjoyed the Milestone Returns era. So hopefully it's continuing and it's just kind of on hold. But in the meantime, we have this series. It's kind of a nice breaking point for just like a nice break point. If they continue, there's more to work with. If they don't, then this is where it ends. All right, time to move over to DC Finest. We got Batman Red Skies. So this is interesting because the Batman volumes so far have been sequential. They did Year 1 and Year 2 and Killing Joke. Those are back-to-back. They bounced back to Red Skies, which is the volume prior to Year 1 and Year 2. It's 85 to 86. And this is a very interesting collection. From what I understand, a bunch of this stuff has never been recollected before. By the way, this is the stuff collected. I'll let you read for yourself. A bunch of this stuff's never been recollected before, as far as I know, and it's really interesting. So where it starts is, because the Red Skies thing is a reference to Crisis on Infinite Earths, where the Anti-Monitor is crashing through the multiverse, and things are coming to an end. And so where it starts, it's just kind of like, oh, hey, we're doing stuff. We're talking about Nocturna. They're fighting Captain Boomerang and Mr. I was going to call him Mr. Mirror. That's not his name. Mirror Master. So there's kind of like a little bit of flash crossover. Then we start getting into this storyline with Nocturna, which is kind of the conclusion of Nocturna's storyline that would be, presumably, in the previous volume to this that does not exist currently. But you start seeing the red skies and the lightning that is in Crisis on Infinite Earths. And so officially these are Crisis tie-ins. They don't talk about Crisis on Infinite Earths at all in any of these tie-ins. And then eventually you get to this point that I think is fascinating. I'm going to get to it. Yeah, you get to a point here where it's just like, and things are happening in Crisis, and Batman's like, I got to deal with Nocturna. Like, it's not like they have anything going on with the main Crisis event. And then we get here, which is Batman 392, where it just says up here, the Crisis on Infinite Earths is over. And then boom, but a new Crisis confined to an alley backing a block with 5 bars. Yeah, it literally just skips over. There's no immediate effect. Like, you kind of end on this where everybody's like talking about like, man, there's acid rain. That's crazy. And then it says, it's just like, it's strange that there's love in this tragedy shared by all in this endearing crisis. Like, everybody in the Batman books just ignores it. And I noticed the upcoming Crisis on Infinite Earths DC Finest, which is going to include all the tie-ins plus the main event, includes these Batman issues. And I gotta tell you, what the hell do these have to do with Crisis? There's zero connection besides the sky's red. Anyways, it's really funny. Now, the other funny part is that if you notice, there's all this, which is all post-Crisis Batman. But the actual point that is, I think, delineated as when Batman starts to reboot is what happens in the next volume in year 1 and year 2. Year 1 is the new origin. You start getting the new origin for Jason Todd. Here he's still a circus acrobat kid who had his parents killed at a circus, which is just literally Dick Grayson again, which was kind of the problem with Jason Todd to begin with. He was literally Dick Grayson again. But the thing I think is interesting is that we talk about post-Crisis Batman being post-Batman year 1, and it's like, that's post-Crisis Batman. It's like, technically all of this is as well. It's just, it doesn't have any changes. This is just exactly what Batman was prior. It's just continuing, and Crisis has sort of happened. And then eventually the Crisis effects set in with the reboot of DC, and then Batman, starting with Batman 401, which is a tie into Legends, which is the big post-Crisis crossover, that's when it becomes post-Crisis. But all of this technically is post-Crisis. That being said, I found it very interesting. There's a lot of great stuff in here, like Catwoman's like, I want to be a hero, and she has to convince Jim Gordon that she's a hero and not a villain anymore, and Batman's trying to help her, and then Batman and Catwoman hang out a lot, and then Robin gets jealous, so he's like, hey, Bullock, you're my partner now. We're going to go solve this crime before Batman and Catwoman do. And then Jim Gordon's like, kids, stop. You're interfering with each other's investigations. You two go here, get your stuff together. It's very funny. It's very funny stuff. Also, really great stories. Lots of great stuff in here. Actually, highly recommend this volume. It's fun, it's engaging, and it's definitely cool. I think, I love post-Crisis Batman, and this is technically post-Crisis Batman, but this is really good stuff. I was really surprised. I picked it up kind of out of curiosity as to, what was right before the Legends crossover, but really great stuff. And then the final issue in this volume, Batman 400, involves all of Batman's villains coming to attack him, led by one villain, and it's basically Hush but better. So, yeah, high recommendation. Also, huge page count. This thing's nearly 700 pages for $40, so good stuff. It's one of my favorite DC characters of all time, Hawkman. DC's been shrimping on the Hawkman collections over the years, but they gave us 2 in one video. We'll get to the other one in a bit. Wings Cross Time, DC Finest. This is Gardner Fox and Joe Kubert. This is Hawkman from 61 to 66. This is Silver Age Hawkman. I love Silver Age Hawkman. I don't necessarily love reading Silver Age Hawkman because every page is filled with enough text that I've asked myself, why am I not just reading a novel? However, that's how it was at the time. The thing I love about it is the fact that you have Hawkman and Hawkwoman working as a duo, as a pair, equal partners, solving crimes, fighting villains from space, going to and from Earth and Thanagar, going through crazy sci-fi adventures using historical archaeological weapons because they work at a museum. And my goodness, they don't mention the resurrection aspect every 5 minutes. It's so refreshing compared to the modern day stories where it seems like all we ever talk about is how Hawkman and Hawkwoman are recreated and reincarnated every single era from different things. And they were, Thanagarians that came to Earth and they became Egyptian priests and priestesses and they reincarnated. And I'm so sick of the reincarnation stuff because all these characters are defined by, like, there was a JSA run recently that had Hawkman in it and he died immediately so we could resurrect him again. And it's just like, they have other things they can do besides die and be resurrected. And I'm so happy to have collections of the stuff where they do literally anything else. And that's what this volume is. High recommendation on my part, but like I said, it is Silver Age. You're going to be doing a lot of reading. This is those books that, I can read books at night. I can read books during the day. This is one I read in the morning when my brain is up and the neurons are firing and I can read through all of the text here because it is like reading a novel with some nice artwork from Joe Kubert and others. I recommend this if you want some Hawkman stories that aren't just about resurrecting all the time. In the same vein, the Robert Venditti run, but that's been out of print for a while, so it's harder to recommend. Where's that Omnibus and DC Finest, DC? And then the last DC Finest this month is Horror, The Devil's Doorway. So, cool thing DC Finest is doing that I think Marvel should adapt for some of their books that may not sell on their own. This is a 1969 to 1970 collection of a collection of stories from House of Secrets, House of Mystery, Witching Hour, Unexpected, plus a bonus story from Phantom Stranger number 5. This is a collection of horror stories from horror anthology books. Instead of trying to sell a House of Mystery book on its own, instead of trying to sell a House of Secrets or an Unexpected or a Witching Hour, they just threw them all together in one go. And that means you have, horror story after horror story back to back here. And it's awesome. I love this. I didn't love the stories they chose for the science fiction volume. That's why I didn't pick it up. I'm planning to get the War and Western volumes because the War volume is like the non-Sergeant Rock stuff. The Western is the non-Jonah Hex stuff. This is just horror stuff that's not like Etrigan or, other characters like Phantom Stranger or Deadman that can sell their own books. This is like just what can't sell on its own. Let's combine it together into a genre volume. And I think that's brilliant. It will take longer to collect all this stuff if they ever do, but it's a good shot at releasing more of these because you can just do a genre instead of trying to sell people on DC Finest, The Witching Hour. I think it's smart. I think it's good. I hope it continues, and I hope these sell well enough to justify it. So the next segment is going to be DC Omnibuses, and the interesting part is that only one of these has stuff I've never owned before. The rest is stuff I have owned, and I'm just upgrading. So, fun times. But let's begin. So, first of all, we have Batman Under the Red Hood Deluxe Edition. Not officially an omnibus. That's more page count than the Godzilla Marvel Omnibus, so it counts. This is a deluxe hardcover of the Judd Winnick, Doug Mahnke story arc of Under the Red Hood, where it was revealed that Jason Todd was not dead and he's back as the Red Hood. I would say that's a spoiler, but they kind of advertise it as such. The cover art here is really cool because it's a reminiscent piece that looks like the Death in the Family cover where Batman's holding Jason's body. It's really sad. I think it's a nice parallel, and the Death in the Family Deluxe Edition has the same type of cover, so they match together. I don't have that because I'm waiting for the DC Finest. But this is pretty much your Under the Red Hood storyline where the movie did it better. So I don't even think the comic is as good as the animated movie did an amazing job. But this is your Batman 635 to 641, 645 to 650, Annual 25, and the Red Hood The Lost Days miniseries, plus some additional pages from Batman Hush, where they had a bit of a fake out. So it gives you a complete story arc. It's not creator focused per se, it's story focused, which is why it skips over 4 issues in the middle, because it's like there's a part 1 and part 2 to the Red Hood story. I own all of this in trade paperback, both the Under the Red Hood storyline plus the Red Hood Lost Days. So it's kind of just me upgrading. This is an important storyline in Batman lore. I love Black Mask's face here. I don't think they captured it as well in the animation as that shock of horror there. But a lot of this, was because I watched the Red Hood movie and then I read the comic and I was like, the comic's not as good. But I think the artwork's still great on this book overall. And the cool part too is, in addition to Red Hood Lost Days, which is kind of like the story of how Jason came back, you also get a bunch of bonus material in the back, like extra artwork and interviews and stuff. So I think it's really cool. My favorite part, it's got a page with design sketches from the animated movie. So pretty solid. The reason I picked this up this month, though, is because it was on sale. It was Batman Day, and several stores were doing sales, and I was like, ooh, sale. Let me grab it on sale, because it's an upgrade. It's not a new entry into the library. Now, what was also on sale, but is a new entry, is Catwoman of East End Omnibus. So I have read in the past, a very long time ago, digital services, libraries, and such, Ed Brubaker and Darwin Cook's Catwoman, which is an iconic run. And to date, since the New 52 Catwoman Omnibus isn't out yet, this is the only Catwoman Omnibus, which is a crime. She has as many solo books as any Bat family member. She has more solo books than any other Batman family member except for Nightwing. Nightwing is the only one that has more than her, and Nightwing's got a ton more omnibuses. Batgirl's got more omnibuses than Catwoman. It is a long time for Selina to be getting her own omnis. The DC Finest Catwoman volumes I've been enjoying so much that I was like, I need more Catwoman in my life. And when they announced the Catwoman New 52 Omnibus, I was like, oh, the Ann Nocenti stuff. I know Judd Winnick also did things, but Ann Nocenti Catwoman, I was like, ooh, Ann Nocenti Catwoman in Omnibus. So I'm very excited about that. And then I was like, wait, is there any other Catwoman omnibuses? And I was like, oh, of course, Ed Brubaker, Darwin Cook, and others on this 2000s run. It isn't the entire 2000s run, it's the first 37 issues, but it does contain what I like up front, even though it came out a little bit into the run, which was the graphic novel Selina's Big Score, which is kind of a good precursor to this series. And then it also includes the Trail of Catwoman Slam Bradley stories from Detective Comics that are an epilogue to that before going into, you can see I just was reading. I got this in yesterday and I was like, I need to read this. I'm so excited. I was very excited to get this because it was on sale as well, which was nice. They keep this one in print pretty good too. But yeah, it leads into the Catwoman ongoing after that. Gorgeous artwork from multiple artists involved. Just great storytelling. I love when Catwoman gets to have stories that don't always involve Batman. Like, Batman obviously should be involved, but I like her when she's out on her own. There's a lot of that in here. Really do love, of course, I always love a table of contents page. I've talked about that in other videos. Do appreciate that. So, very good. Highly recommended. This look of Catwoman, by the way, Darwin Cook. Darwin Cook designed this look, and this has been the default look for Catwoman ever since. Every other costume never stuck as long as this one has, as the default. All credits to him. I do miss Darwin Cook making art for us. Rest in peace, Darwin Cook. But the work is beautifully presented here, and it's also nice. It's a white spine. We don't get that many white-spined omnibuses, especially in the Batman world, so I love that contrast. But high recommendation. There's a DC Compact Edition, I think, of the first arc or so of the ongoing, which, you know, if you're wanting to check it out and you don't have a DC Universe subscription, go check that out because good stuff. Good books. All right, so my comic shop had gotten some trade-ins. Their trade-ins were like 75 omnibuses, so I got to get some stuff I didn't have. Batgirl Returns Omnibus by Gail Simone is the New 52 Batgirl run, which is the Barbara Gordon run. Also, Gordon's Batgirl is the only one that's gotten omnibuses. Tisk DC. Cassandra Cain's had more solo issues. Anyways, this contains Batgirl 0 to 34, plus Young Romance New 52 Valentine's Day Special, Batgirl Annual 1 and 2, Dark Knight 23.1, and Batgirl Future's End. It is a Gail Simone omnibus, right? Because it's got her name there. Big fan of Gail Simone's work at DC, and I'm kind of like, I wanted to get all of the Gail Simone DC omnibuses, because they started making more of them. They basically, you know, this was the first one, I think, and then now they've done Secret Six, they're doing Birds of Prey. Very excited about that. This run had some controversy because the New 52 reboot of DC sort of kept some storylines, so Barbara Gordon was still crippled, and I don't know if she was Oracle because she's back as Batgirl, and people were like, well, she was great as Oracle. Why do we have to go back to Barbara as Batgirl? And I agree, but bringing in Gail Simone, who wrote Barbara very well on Birds of Prey, was a smart move because I did enjoy this run. I did read this monthly. I did read this in singles. I still have my singles. I don't think I'm going to have my singles too much longer at this point because, well, now I got the omnibus. This thing's been out of print for a little bit. I'm sure they'll reprint it. It's a Batman-related title. It's pretty popular. It's Gail Simone. I was like, cool. I got a chance to get a copy. Gonna take my chance. Really nice to get. In that same vein, Batman and Robin by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. I have all of the New 52 portion of this book in singles. I don't actually have the pre-New 52 stuff, which there is a bit of a gap between the second Grant Morrison omnibus and this for Batman and Robin. But this book, it's huge. It's gigantic. This is a thick book. They printed this several times. I could get this one online. Someone traded it to my comic shop. They were giving me a deal. I was like, yeah, I'll just get it from my comic shop. Did I pay a little bit more than I would have online? Yeah. Do I care? No, not really, because, give my comic shop some love. So this is Batman and Robin 21 to 22, which was Tomasi's first run on the character before New 52 reboot happened, and then it's got the rest of it, which goes all the way through issue 40. It's got all 3 annuals, and it's got some extra stories that were done by Tomasi and Gleason for Damian, and it's great. A great run. Really do like this one, and glad to have it upgrade to Omnibus. And then to wrap this comic haul up, we've got Hawkman by Jeff Johns Omnibus, which also should be called Hawkman by Jeff Johns and James Robinson, because James Robinson co-wrote half of this, and Rags Morales is the artist on most of this. This is the Hawkman run that has had an omnibus. This is Hawkman's only Omni. When it was first printed, the binding was so bad that you either had 2 versions of the book. Either the pages were falling out uncontrollably, or the glue was so tight you couldn't open the spine. So there was a lot of problems, and people wanted a reprint of this for like a decade almost at this point. Luckily, it's sewn binding this time, not glue binding, which was the error made before. This does contain the Jeff Johns, James Robinson portion of this, which is, do we have a table of contents? We should. It's decent. Oh wait, this is an older omnibus. No, we don't. This contains issues 1 through 25, Hawkman's Secret Files and Origins, and JSA 56 to 58, which is the, what is it called? Dark Reign crossover? No, that's not right. That's a different storyline. Anyways, there's a JSA crossover. I have owned this book. This is my 3rd time owning it. I have the singles. I have the 2 trade paperbacks of Hawkman by Jeff Johns. Now I have the omnibus. This will probably be it. I don't need another one. What I do need out of UDC is to reprint the rest of the 2000s Hawkman. This series ran into the 60s issue count-wise, and yet we only ever see the first 25 reprinted over and over again. And I personally think the later stuff is even better, especially when the book transitions to being Hawkgirl-led after Infinite Crisis. Like, I really, really gotta say, like, there's way more Hawkman to be doing. Now, part of this series is part of where my problem with Hawkman and Hawkgirl and also Hawkwoman being a separate person, that's a whole other thing. Part of my problem with how a lot of times they're written in modern days comes from this run being very popular and famous, because this run is very focused on the resurrections. And it's kind of like, oh, hey, Carter remembers their past lives, but Kendra doesn't. And so Carter's like, I should be in love with you. And Kendra's like, I don't know who you are. That's good drama, but that kind of takes up a lot of the book. I did reread this, though, when I got my omnibus in, and I finished it that night. I mean, it's not that long, but still, I kind of binged it all in one go because I've read it so many times. It is the quintessential modern Hawkman story, even though I think the Robert Venditti run is 100% better in every way. It is still good, though. I gotta give it credit. Like, I kind of like, this run frustrates me because as a fan of the character, this is like the source of all our problems of every Hawkman story being about resurrection. But there's some great ideas in here, like the fact that Carter works at a museum and runs a museum because he's gathering artifacts from his past and piecing his memories together. Like, that's great. There's some good action. There's some good storytelling. There's great stuff with Kendra. Kendra's a great character. I just wish they would stop getting lobbed into this thing of, like, their only cool thing is the fact that they're reincarnated. Like, no, they have flying wings. Like, they have wings, they can fly with anti-gravity belts, they can hit things with cool weapons. You work in the fact that they've had past lives, so they have, like, past technology, like, usage, like, oh, we're going to use, like, a flail this time, because we know how that thing works. Like, there's a lot you can do with these characters, and I love the Indiana Jones type aspect that Robert Venditti brought to the character. This is this is a good run, and I can recommend it, but it frustrates me because this is kind of where the Hawk characters got flanderized. Just in everything. Adaptations, productions, doesn't help that Jeff Johns was involved in bringing in the CW and basically just recreating that issue again. I really like the Hawk characters, and when I tell people that Hawkman's one of my favorite superheroes, people think I'm nuts because of stuff like this. This is like the impetus of the problem. I did buy the omnibus. I'm not hating the book. This is a good book. It's a good comic. Honestly, it is. I can't say it's bad. It's good. I'm just kind of frustrated that this book sort of became the template for everything forward as opposed to being kind of like a reintroduction point. Is this how Hal Jordan and Barry Allen fans feel with Green Lantern Rebirth and Flash Rebirth? I don't know. But, like, this book is good, And the Rags Morales artwork in this is incredible. All the artwork is great. I love this issue where they do a flashback and actually make like Hawkman and Hawkgirl, Nighthawk and Cinnamon, which are pre-existing Western characters. Love stuff like that. But again, I wish that this was not what the characters are all the time. Like, I wish they could just be superheroes or go into like sci-fi stuff like the Silver Age, as opposed to just always being about dying and reincarnating. So rant aside, I do like the book. The binding is much better this time. They fixed it, and I'm happy to see it. But I need more Hawkman omnibuses so I can stop looking like a crazy person. So that's all the comics I got in September. Yeah, there was quite a bit. If anyone's wondering, I don't know why, but reading status-wise, I'm doing pretty dang good, honestly, all things considered. I mean, I haven't read Guardians, haven't read Dracula, because those just showed up just recently. I've read all of those. Either I read them on Marvel Unlimited or when they came out, or when I got them. I'm still reading Catwoman. I need to read the horror volume, still working on Hawkman. That's slow but sturdy. I've read pretty much everything else. I even binged through Codename G.I. Joe a second time, just because I was like, it's here, it's short, but I've read pretty much everything else, so I'm doing pretty good. That being said, these comic hauls are going to be interesting in the next couple months, because there was another order made on the last day of September, which will be part of the October haul, and going into next year, the hauls are going to be a little bit lighter, because I noticed that the number of new releases are a little less, so I'm going to try to catch up on a couple books I'm missing, but most importantly, catch up on reading. I've got a lot of epics to read. I've got several DC Omnis to read. So first half of next year is going to be a lot of reading and some catching up, because there seems to be only like, I think 4 or 5 books a month for me, which is weird, but also my tastes are kind of weird, and this back half of the year is just like Marvel and DC going, look, we're going to give you all the stuff you like, and I'm like, it's nice. You could spread it out a little bit. But that being said, if you want to keep up with future videos like more comic hauls and other types of videos on the channel, hit subscribe now so you don't miss out. Hit the notification bell so you get alerted when we post new videos. Also, hit the like button if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you picked up this month, or something that I picked up that you liked as well. Like, I hope there's more fans of Catwoman out there, because it seems like she doesn't get enough love. All right, so on that note, standard things we do on YouTube channels. You can join our Discord server in the link below. Continue the conversation. Come share your own comic hauls down there in our comics channel. You can also join as a channel member, get perks like early access to videos and member-exclusive shout-outs like this. Special shout out to all of our channel members, including Captain Tears, Spin-54, MasterBed95, Forever1000, Super Shaddix Boom, Mr. Smelly Potato, James Abel, Jamie's World, Veloquince, Rabbitman, Daniel Evans, Zizu426, Common Pikachu, John Troutman, Spidey Brian, Fernando Perea, Smotlock, Lord Tatman, Henry G, Caro, Gang1, Sebastian Travez. Thank you all for your support, both viewers and members alike. If you so wish, you can find me on social media as Soundout12 on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. You can also find my wonderful graphic designer on social media and on our Discord server at DarkClaw643. And you can find Hero Club at HeroClub.com for comic reviews and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, see you in the next haul.